We got a handful of great matchups this weekend. The one we're going to focus on first, we're going to look to Friday night, where it is an NFC heavyweight bout. Eagles, Packers, Brazil. A lot of storylines to get into, but B-Mac, I know you got your eyes on this new look Eagles secondary against this young Packers receiving core.
No question. I mean, a year ago with the Eagles defensively, there was a lot of things that were not going right, starting with the guys on the first level, and it trickled down to the guys in the third level. But if you look at this new revamped Eagles secondary, Howie did a phenomenal job adding talent to their secondary to try to improve the overall concept of play. But how would this new look, revamped secondary look against, as I call them, the four horsemen of the Green Bay Packers when it comes to their wide receivers? You got Keely Ringo, Quinyon Mitchell, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. He returns. But look at what they have to go against out in Brazil Friday night. I mean, all four guys combined for 2,470 yards and 25 receiving touchdowns. Now, get this, guys. The most talented athletic wide receiver in Christian Watson, he was more out of the lineup than in. And they still was able to provide more than serviceable production for Jordan Love and for their offense. So can this revamped secondary for Philadelphia be able to neutralize or contain the four horsemen of the Green Bay Packers when it comes to their top four wide receivers? That's the matchup I'm looking for.
It's a great matchup because there's so much unknown in terms of just the talent, because you have guys like Quinyon Mitchell, who's a rookie, who's going to be manning the slot, first-round pick for the Philadelphia Eagles, that a lot of people love.
He's going to be asked to do a lot by Vic.
But he never played slot back at Toledo. You have this Packers rookie receiving core that was two of those guys were rookies. Their entire tight end room were rookies last year. So four of their top pass catchers, all rookies. What's their next step in their development look like? And then Christian Watson, kind of like the enigma, who's easily the most talented guy physically in that Packers receiving core, but it has one hamstring that's made out of tissue paper and just can't stay on the football field. Actually went to, I think, the Wisconsin Medical Center and had them diagnose that like one hamstring was like 3 times as strong as the other this offseason, and had to do exercises specifically to avoid that. And so if he's healthy, that's a guy that just you have to account for every play. We saw it in the first play of that Thanksgiving game down the football field against the Detroit Lions. So a lot of great matchups, but a lot of big unknowns. And the one I'm looking for is just how does this new look defense with Vic Fangio coming over to the Philadelphia Eagles, how does this secondary respond? Because last year it was a mess.
Yeah. Well, it's like, are you going to be able to buy in? And we've all had different styles of coaches before. And Vic Fangio, as we all know, he's an old school type of coach. He's that salty dog that's in the team meeting room. Doesn't say much. And when he's asked to say anything, he's just like, let's go get him. You know what I'm saying? But for these defenders that are used to this new school style of coaching, particularly these young guys that are going to be in the secondary, they're going to be asked a lot by Vic Fangio. They're going to be asked to do a lot. And when it comes down to Matt LaFleur and his prep, he finds a way to get separation for his receivers. And Vic Fangio is going to try to show Jordan Love and these receivers certain things pre-snaps to try to get them to get to their checks, check with me stuff pre-snap, BMAC. And the next thing you know, it's going to be taken away after the snap. And my question is the defense, the young members of this Eagles defense, ready to step up intellectually enough and make the plays that Vic Fangio will set up for them? Because I promise you, both of these coaches are right. Matt LaFleur will be right in his install and his reasonings why. Yep. Vic Fangio will be right. It's chess, as you know, B-Mac. But are the pawns going to be able to keep up with this thing quick enough? And for the Green Bay side of the ball, it's the youth in their receiving room. Are they going to continue to progress? They got the targets on their back now in Green Bay. Everybody's got them at the tops of their list. And for the Philadelphia Eagles, are they able to reload, retool, and get this thing firing in the right direction with Vic Fangio at defensive coordinator?
B-Mac, I'm curious your thoughts on a guy like Darius Slay at 33 years old, still out there. How does your body feel at that age? And how, we see this thing with cornerbacks where it feels like if they can get past like 30, 31, they can last a long time. But I think we saw a big drop off from Darius Slay a year ago.
We did, and I think we saw a big drop-off from the defense in totality also. And the thing about the locker room, anything that's circulated in the locker room, it becomes contagious. If one side has a bad vibe, that bad vibe, it surfaces throughout the entire locker room. And that's why we saw a decline in production, after the first 11 or 12 games for Philadelphia. Now for Darius Slay, one of the key components with him still being able to be so productive productive at this age in his career is he's dodged the injury bullet when it comes to anything significant. You know, a groin pull or a groin tear or a hamstring pull. He's been able to dodge those type of injuries that has allowed him to be able to be more so in the lineup than out. But he has to be the leader for this secondary. He has to be one of the leaders on their defense because they're going kind of through a youth movement. I know they still have Brandon Graham and some of the other guys, but when you look at Brandon Graham and Darius Slay, these two guys have to be the leaders amongst the guys on the defensive side to be able to keep everyone dialed in and focused and also lead through production.
Yeah, I think you hit the other nail on the head here about what I want to talk about in this defensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles and how young they are and how ascending they are, because you have guys like Jalen Carter, who was a top 10 pick a year ago, Jordan Davis, who was a first rounder a couple of years ago. You have Milton Williams, who was a third rounder a few years back that came on really strong. You have Bryce Huff, who you just signed from the New York Jets, who
this
was
is a nightmare
DPR for the longest time. And you still have Brandon Graham out there kind of getting the job done at 36 years old, older than me out there. So they throw a lot at you. That's kind of how they win, is basically one of their guys is going to get a one-on-one. And when that's the case, they trust that guy to win. But against this Packers offensive line, they're young too. Like, it really is quite a youth movement on both sides, the Philadelphia defense, this Packers offensive line, where 4 of those 5 starters are on their rookie deals still. I don't have a good handle on which side wins this, but I think it's going to be tough to get for the Green Bay Packers and that O-line.
Can I say something, guys? I think that was a key point because if they're going to have success defensively, it starts with the guys that put their hand in the dirt. And the 2 most important factors for their defensive front is Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. They have to dominate. Highly invested players via the draft, super athletic, has the size, the strength. They have to dominate. And if you go back to that Super Bowl year for Philly, remember the 2 major components for their defense that was unbelievable. They had around 70 sacks or something like that. It started and it stopped with Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox.
Yep.
They got everything going. So for Philly, Jalen Carter in year 2, man, there's going to be a lot to be asked of you. Jordan Davis, you got to come up. You cannot be 6'6", 363, ran a 4.8, and just playing high as a kite. Get your pad level low and move a man against his will. At some point in time, that's what they brought you in to do. And if he's able to do that, if those 2 guys can be the anchor, Bryce Huff is going to have a heck of a day. Sweat, Brandon Graham, everyone, especially the linebackers I have concerns with as well. But if those guys in the interior can make sure they do what they're supposed to do, the second level guys going to have a heck of a day, and the same can be said for the secondary.
Yeah, it cleans up the whole picture for those linebackers when Jordan Davis is. And you know what? If he is playing super high, I played against a guy by the name of Akeem Hicks who was about the same measurables as this dude, Jordan Davis. Just too dang big, and he's the reason I'm not playing anymore because my neck hurts, B-Mac. But at the end of the day, I knew that when I had him lined up against me, I was going to be fighting a bear the entire practice, like a literal bear. And then you go over on the other side and you talk about Jalen Carter, and he's a guy that can beat you any number of ways. He's a Swiss Army knife. He can beat you with his get-off. He can beat you with outside step, club in. He can beat you, hump moves. He's got all the moves. And for an interior rusher, I think that's the new thing, these interior rushers that can get home a number of ways. They're not just bull rushing, because as you know, the bull rush, it wears the D lineman out, gets him tired, and that's a wasted rep. And it's an easy win for the O lineman if you bull rush. Fletcher Cox was great at running games, setting up BG on TEs and ETs. Those 2 guys got home a lot. And I loved your point about Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox. And without Fletcher Cox, it leaves that void for who is going to be the true alpha in this room, because make no mistake about it, Fletcher Cox has been the alpha in that room for a very long time. Him out, Jordan Davis has to step up. Jalen Carter has to continue his ascent to that all-pro level of football that we see flashes of week in, week out.
Yeah, Jalen Carter's the one guy that, as a draft analyst, I can't wait to see, because DT is a difficult position to transition year 1. Chris Jones was not Chris Jones year 1. Aaron Donald was not Aaron Donald year 1. It takes a while to adjust to that physicality. So the fact that he had almost 50 pressures as a rookie.
Stupid.
He scares me. He scares me a little.